the results or non-participation, etc. We look forward to hearing from you. We thank you for joining us, and we will have a very lively, very informative session for you this evening. As usual, we have with us Officer Corps of the UIC, Mr. Joseph Patterson, our president. We have Mrs. Paulette Mackenzie Williams. She's our vice president for Surrey. We have Mr. Devon Thompson, vice president for Middlesex, and myself, vice president for Cornwall. We have members such as Mr. Marvin Kelly joining us. We have distinguished guests such as Mr. Robert Carr. We're expecting to hear from our chairman very shortly. And again, we thank you for joining us. I will move things right along this evening by asking our membership director, Mrs. Chikowski, to lead us in our favorite pledge. Janet?
Thank you, Mr. VP. Let us focus on the pledge. Before God and all mankind, I pledge the love and loyalty of my heart, the wisdom and courage of my mind, the strength and vigor of my body in the service of my fellow citizens. I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace, to work diligently and creatively, to think generously and honestly, so that Jamaica may, under God, increase in beauty, fellowship, and prosperity, and play her part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race. And that is the goal of the UIC movement. Back to you, Mr. Wright.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much, Janet. I love the emphasis you place on those very important parts. And I particularly love this pledge, despite its origin. It speaks powerfully to what we need to do to be one Jamaica, as UIC dreams, as UIC plans to do. Now, our first item on the agenda is for our chairman to speak. But unfortunately, our chairman isn't here with us just now. So if you don't mind sharing a few minutes with me, just to say that over the past couple of days, Jamaica has been awash with persons celebrating what they believe to be a victory, but what the UIC know to be just another retrograde step in our political arena. And we're here today to inform everyone, to open our eyes, to open the country's consciousness to what, one, the meaningful alternative that UIC is, and two, to show what is deficient in our political arena as we have it today. So we're gonna move along and spend a few minutes with our vice president. I'm going to start with Mrs. Mackenzie Williams, so she can brief us on what the UIC has been doing, especially in her area of expertise. Mrs. Mackenzie Williams, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Paulette Mackenzie Williams, Vice President for Surrey County, which is Kingston, St. Andrew, Portland, and St. Mary. I'm Paulette again, and I am a mother of three, an accountant by profession. Also, my passion is social engineering. And for that reason, I created the Born to Be Great Mentorship Center, which is a center that mentors young people from as early as the age of 7. The election just passed. I myself did not participate. And I did not participate because I felt that the two parties did not quite live up to my expectation for what politics should be. And for that reason, I did not vote in this election. Now, the UIC is the party that I believe will engineer and re-engineer Jamaica to be in that country that we all desire to be. The UIC's emphasis on personal liberty, protecting the life, property, and liberty of all Jamaicans equally, is particularly endearing to me. Also, this idea of a clean, a safe, and a prosperous Jamaica is something that I long to see, a country that is clean, safe, and orderly. So I just want to say that welcome to our town hall meeting, and I hope that you will be enthused and that you will get information that will make you see the UIC as that government in future with the governance structure that will make us a better country. Over back to you, Winston.
Thank you so very much, Madam Vice President. It's always good hearing from you. And I know our followers, our members, and our close associates who support UIC Vision will want to hear more from you as to what you do community-wise to support the development of your community and what you bring to the UIC in terms of helping us to be that government in waiting, which we believe we are, which we know we are. Now, we have several distinguished members with us, and we'll get to everyone. I know the attempt here today is to get as much of the questions as we can, because the public has been dying to hear from us since our last town hall. Persons have been very engaged, looking forward to hear from us, to have their questions answered, because they find the UIC common sense approach and very well-reasoned approach to governance and the issues of poor governance that we face very, very appealing. So at this time, I'm going to ask our Vice President, Mr. Devon Thompson, if he can tear himself away from the master control and just share with us a bit. Devon?
Hi, good night, everyone. Devon Thompson here. I hope everyone is doing fine, and we have all the folks lined up today for our Facebook Live meeting. So just to give you a quick introduction of who I am, my name is Devon Thompson. I'm the Vice President. I'm one of 3 Vice Presidents of the UIC. I am an engineer by profession. I have a bachelor's degree of engineering from the Caribbean Maritime Institute, as well as a advanced diploma from Centennial College in Toronto, Canada. I joined the UIC because I've realized that there are there's no promise, no true promise, or no true actions involved right now with the system of governance in terms of making change for Jamaica. I want to grow up in a Jamaica, I want to live in a Jamaica where my children can grow to be safe. I want to live in a Jamaica where I don't have to worry about my friends or my family's safety. I want to live in a Jamaica where I can conduct business without fear and without restrictions or red tape from the government. And that is why I joined the UIC, because the UIC is all about freedom. The UIC is all about change, and the UIC is all about ensuring individual rights for all Jamaicans. So again, thank you for joining us today. We hope that you learned something. We hope that you have things to contribute, any questions that you want to have asked. We will answer those questions for you tonight. Thanks, Winston.
Thank you so very much, Devon. Good hearing from you, as usual. And for myself, for those of you who are returning to our forum, you would have been familiar with me. My name is Winston Wright. I'm your Vice President for the region of Cornwall, the County of Cornwall. And I am very delighted to be a part of the UIC family. I remember returning to Jamaica from my posting overseas and in search of an answer to what I perceived to be lack of governance, poor oversight of the governance system in Jamaica. And I remember meeting Mr. Joseph Patterson after reaching out and having that conversation in the parking lot after dropping my wife to work. And it was a meeting of the minds. It was truly a remarkable experience for me. I'd never felt so comfortable and so drawn in, so engaged by such a brief conversation before, because I'm always skeptical. But Mr. Patterson sold me on the vision of UIC, and I am here to say to you today
that the system that we have, and Mr. Patterson is an engineer, and as you hear, Devon is an engineer, and we have quite a few engineers. Marvin is an engineer as well, and they will tell you that if you have a system that is poorly designed, then it will not function. There is no retrofitting that will get it to work properly. It has to be a streamlined design with purpose in mind. And the system that we have currently, that is engaging us currently, is a system that was designed as a tool of oppression. So therefore, nothing else will come from it but subjugation and misery. Now, the UIC vision is to tear down the system. And if tear down is too strong a word, let me temper that by saying re-engineer, recreate a system from the bottom up that is designed to make every single Jamaican, regardless of your class, your perceived social standing, a man or a woman, that is able to produce, contribute, and realize your dream, because your freedoms, your fundamental freedoms are protected, your rights are assured, and the opportunities that are available is available to all. The playing field is level for each and every one to succeed. It's no longer a Godfather affair, or I'll look in your face and decide if you will live by my magnanimity anymore. So I joined the UIC for those reasons, because I've been subjected to the bureaucracy of Jamaican life. I've seen a system work in other jurisdictions that I've lived and worked, and I know that the one that we have in Jamaica is not it. So having said that, UIC is the place for me. I'm here to create a better Jamaica for my kids, for my family. But in doing so, I can't only do that for my family. I have to do it for every single family that is in this island that we love so dearly. So Mr. Patterson, thank you for sharing that vision with us. Thank you for sharing that vision with me. I'm on board. Now, that is it from me. If there are any questions, please feel free to direct them whether to our Facebook account for those of us who are joining us on Facebook. We look forward to hearing from you. We will be reading your questions and getting answers from the officer core of the UIC, the nucleus, the key people who can tell you what the UIC will be doing for you. Not plan to, not can do, but will be doing for you to make Jamaica that place. Now, if you're joining us on Facebook, put your questions in the comment section as well. We will read through them. If you're on YouTube watching us live, go ahead, pop your question in the comment section. Devon is at the master control, and he'll make sure your questions get to us, and we will answer those questions for you pointedly and honestly. We'll make sure that you get those answers that you need now, because we want you to leave here engaging with us, feeling that you have been educated as to what that change need to be. So come on, join us. We need you to make one Jamaica. Now, I know you're dying to hear from this man. I know you are waiting with bated breath to hear from Mr. Joseph Patterson, the man himself. So join me in welcoming to the microphone the president of the UIC, the man of the moment, the hour, and the man that will lead Jamaica and the UIC to a better place, Mr. Joseph Patterson. Joseph.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wright, and thank you to Vice President Mackenzie Williams and Vice President Devon Thompson. You have all spoken well, and Mr. Wright, you really big me up, sir. Boy, I tell you. But before I get into what I would love to share with you, there are a few more faces right here on our Zoom space that I'd love to get a chance to just say for 1 minute, 60 seconds, just introduce yourself briefly to our audience, say your name, where you're from, and what has attracted you to the UIC. I'm going to give you some of my time. The host has graciously given me 10 minutes to introduce myself and some thoughts to you, and I'm going to share at least 5 minutes of that 10 minutes with you, because one of the things about the UIC is that none of us are better than any of us. So even though I'm the president and the leader and the founder and all of them something there, the bottom line is this: we're all Jamaicans and we're all equal, and you have just as much claim and right to Jamaica and even to speak to Jamaica as I do. So at this point, I'm going to invite, first of all, a gentleman that I met recently via this media and found him to be highly intellectual and profoundly knowledgeable about the course that Jamaica should take. And I'd love to have Mr. Kerr just take a minute and introduce himself to us. and what has attracted him to the UIC. Go ahead, Mr. Kerr.
Good night, everyone. Can I be heard?
Yes, you can.
Okay,
Yes,
good. It's an honor to be able to speak to everyone, and I have had probably 20, 30 more 40 years experience in the politics of the country, but not in the partisan politics of the country. And I have, I think, a deep understanding of the issues and the requirements for change. I made contact with the UIC through Facebook, and I should not have been amazed, but I was very happy to see a program that stepped outside of the traditional partisan way of looking at things and had a program that would bring democracy to the country. And so to that extent, I was very much interested in the work of this organization. I know I have a minute, but so I'll use the rest of that minute to say that we are in one of the most challenging periods in the history of the country. It's not going to be a playpen down the road. And Jamaica is a high-profile country, and the world watches us. The program that we are advancing has implications for global change. And for that reason, we have to be very smart going forward. We have to pull on the experiences of history and find the right strategy. We have the right program and concept and direction, but we have to find the right strategy. And all of us have in our genes some traditional politics. We've been immersed in it. Some of us can't even think outside of it. And there's always a great danger of opportunism, of trying to replace what is there. You don't want to replace what you want. You want a different ethos completely from what is there. The PMP quickly got into an election, to me, on sheer opportunism. This is not a time when people should be casting votes in this health pandemic. And there's always a temptation for us to want to get to power, regardless of how good our motives are, beyond the people. We have to be on the crest of the popular movement. People, it has to be a movement from the ground up. And for that to happen, it needs organization and education. The people on the ground have to be the mouthpieces for all the things that we are putting forward as UCC. They must own these ideas. They must own and understand how the absence of these things are affecting their daily lives and therefore want change. When that happens and begins to happen, you don't have to worry about power, because people put people in power who they believe will fulfill this agenda. So that is my talk for now. But I look forward to see the thing grow, and I offer my years of experience and guidance in helping it to happen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kerr. Much appreciated. I'd love to hear now from Dr. Harvey, a longtime supporter of the UIC, brilliant chiropractor, and somebody with a deep understanding of many of the things that are happening today behind the scenes globally. Dr. Harvey, could you share with us what has drawn you to the UIC and a brief introduction of yourself? 1 minute. Right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's the fact that we have this, libertarian viewpoint, which I've always been attracted to. I always wondered why governments weren't run with these types of principles, and then I discovered that that's what you're all about. And have, gotten, my whole being involved in making this go forward. What I'm doing, I'm taking some select patients. I'm a chiropractor here in Jamaica. Patients that I know who I think would fit in with us, and I'm talking to them not only about membership, but I have a couple who are interested perhaps in running when we have the next election 4 or 5 years down the road.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dr. Harvey. And now, an even longer term supporter of the UIC, who has always remained in the background, but aggressively looking for ways to increase her membership and attracting persons to the organization. And a good friend of mine, Camille Gurjani. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us what attracted you to the UIC? All right, seems as if her mic is off or she's away from her. Yes.
I'm
Camille?
here, sorry.
No
Thank you, sir. Basically, the reason I am here is because I want to make a difference for my country and my people. I can remember the days when I was younger, at school in Clarendon College, and it was just an amazing place to grow up. And I want to see that back again. I never had burglar bars on my windows, and I'm here in the US. I don't have burglar bars on my windows. And I feel it's such a horrible way to live. People die because they can't get out of the burglar bar in time or they can't find the key. And it's just not the way that we as free people we're supposed to be living in burglar bars. That's just unacceptable to me. Why is it that we still have people living in shacks on the edge of the bank, and when the river come down, them gone with it? No, that's unacceptable as well. And so I am here because the vision of UIC and the vision of as stated by Mr. Patterson is exactly my vision for Jamaica. And I'm committed. It's enough time that Jamaicans say, oh, Jamaica is so bad and it's this and it's that and the crime. Okay, well, put up or shut up. I'm sorry, pardon the French, but enough talking. Let's do something. And the only way to do it is become active. See what if you don't have any skills, pardon my background noise, okay? I'm in a hotel traveling. And you just do something. If you don't have any skills, donate to the team who actually do have the skills that can do. So everybody have a place at UIC. Everybody have a place. And I'm just committed to this for the long haul. And I'm going to be here throughout the next 4 or 5 years. And I know that the UIC has to be in place for the next election, because this is, to me, I feel like is the last chance for change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Camille. Much appreciated. I feel the passion, I hear it, and I share it. And now I'm going to invite Marvin Kelly. Oh, by the way, I should have told you all before, to tell us where you're calling from. I believe Dr. Harvey is in Montego Bay. Mr. Robert Kerr is in Kingston. And Camille, you're in the US. And
yes, Pensacola
Marvin,
Beach, Florida.
Pensacola Beach, wonderful. And Marvin Kelly over in London, I think. Marvin, introduce yourself and tell us what attracted you to the UIC.
Hello, good night. I'm Marvin Kelly, currently living in Nottingham, England. My attraction to the UIC, when you look at the politics in Jamaica, I think two of the things that tends to keep the country down, one is the divisions between us, and systematically all politics is such that there'll always be a divide. That possibility for us to unite cannot be implemented, because clearly one side has to be in opposition, one side in government, and that synergy between both teams is not there. So I like the vision of the UIC where that philosophy of division is removed. And the second thing I think is good going forward in terms of the philosophy of the UIC is the means of getting rid of corruption, because that's another thing that's killing us, and that is education. If everybody understands what's happening, everybody's educated to understand how to avoid to understand what's happening in terms of how a government should run, then clearly that's the best tool to remove corruption from any government. And I'm attracted to the vision of the UIC. And I like the passion that Camille has just been ensuing. And it's the same sort of energy I want to bring forward. That's it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Marvin, Kelly. Appreciate it. I see we have a Norma Hall who has been added to the forum. Norma, would you be so kind as to do a quick introduction of yourself and tell us what attracted you to the UIC? Also tell us where you are, if you can. And remember to unmute your mic if you want to speak.
Oh, okay, hold on.
We're hearing you now. Go right ahead.
As you know, Norma Hall, I'm from Bethelton, Westmoreland. And what attracted me to this movement, I can see the difference you guys can make, and we need the difference and we need the change. And I like the output and the positive output. And I'm more or less, I said to my son, this election gonna run, you know, that you guys have to be the opposition, although I don't select as an opposition, because you guys have to be the watchdog for Jamaica. I never know say would go like that as a bang. So we're gonna have a lot of slot to pick up, and this is the time to make yourself known and felt and present out there. You need to do that, guys. I tell my son, I will be there with him. The next 4 or 5 years, my vote is for him.
Thank you very much, Ms. Norma. As I hear you speak, I feel like I'm listening to my own mother.
Oh.
And I thank you so much for coming on tonight and for just sharing with us in the way that a mother does. I can sense the care that you have, not just for your son, but for Jamaica. Jamaica as your own child, because you have seen it, you have had years of experience, you have watched how we have gone between two different sides, picking each side and hoping for some significant changes, only to be disappointed in the end. But I can tell you this, the UIC is determined to liberate Jamaica and to liberate all Jamaicans. And somebody wrote in a comment and said, you know, we have had social distances for the poor and the average Jamaican for so many years. It's time for us to unite. And the UIC is going to unite Jamaica. We're going to be a united Jamaica. We're going to be a strong Jamaica. And we're going to be a free Jamaica. And you're going to live to see it.
Yes, I hope so. And thanks for joining you guys.
Thank you. All right.
So Joseph,
So
the questions are already coming in, Joseph.
Yes, so we're going to just go to the questions. If you want to know more about me, please feel free to go on our website at uicjamaica.com, and there's a little blurb about me there. But for tonight, we're going to go straight to the questions. So, Mr. Host, Winston Wright, I'm going to turn it over to you and have you guide us through the questions, please.
Thank you, Joseph. So we have the first question coming in from Facebook, and this question is from Robert Reed. Why did you step out of the election?
Very good question. The UIC considered it very irresponsible and very reckless for the Prime Minister to call an election in the midst of a pandemic, when constitutionally we could have waited until June 10th, 2021. That's a clear 9 months when we could focus on ensuring that we protect the lives and livelihoods of Jamaica. Unfortunately, the Prime Minister and the opposition leader pushed for elections, whip up a frenzy in the people, and actually exposed us to a greater risk of community spread. And in fact, you have seen it, that we have had a marked increase in the number of cases, and we're going to have a severe drawdown on our resources in the hospitals and our clinics because of this. It's also going to put our economy at risk again and further push our country behind. It's unfortunate, but the UIC would have no part in it. We would not ask our members and our supporters to go out and vote and participate in a reckless election, nor would we want our country to be so exposed. And so we stood out of the elections, and we asked that Jamaicans watch carefully that those who have been in charge of our government has always chosen to put their interest ahead of the people's interest. The UIC is only here for one interest, and it is the interest of every single Jamaican, because we consider everyone important, even the minority, and the greatest minority is a single person. Every Jamaican, your life matters, your economy matters, and the UIC stands for you, and we ask you to stand with us.
Well said, Joseph. And it's important to point out that even though there's a media blackout and everything that the UIC has said and done prior to the calling of the election to warn the public and to beseech the government not to go ahead, persons still got the message, and that 37% voter turnout is an indication that Jamaica is onto the dirty tricks of the present political elite, the career politicians who would exploit the people. But I'll let you get into that later on, Joseph. Right now, let's take some more questions for you. And I know we have a couple persons waiting, Devon. So I know you're looking out for those persons to get in. We have a question from, let's get into this here. Give me a second. Having a little technical difficulty, but that will not stop the show. We have a question from Noreen Kelly. What part will agriculture plan in the development of Jamaica? I think it should be what part will agriculture play in the development of Jamaica if you become the government in the next general election?
Right. I noticed there's a question just before that from a Olivia Jackson, where she says, what is your strategy for getting more people on board? I'm going to ask Vice President Devon, can you speak to that?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I was so busy monitoring the comments. Okay, so our strategy for getting people on board is to run educational campaigns for a year to 5, because we're not only trying to get members to join us to become MPs or to become councillors. We want regular Jamaicans to join us in allowing the UIC or creating policy or assisting the UIC to create policies for when we form the next government. In regards to members of parliament, what we're trying to do is to ensure that we have all 63 members available within a year. So we're not going to wait 5 years, 4 years, or 3 years. We're going to work to ensure that we have all candidates available for the UIC within a year. But here's the thing. The UIC has a policy. We're not going to take a resident of Portmore and assign that resident to become a MP in St. Anne, because we believe that you should represent where you live. So we're not going to bring an outsider into your community to represent you. So we need people within these communities to step up, join the UIC, and to represent their community. The other thing is, we also have a policy where we don't like the idea of representatives, members of parliament becoming ministers in a cabinet. For example, sorry, let me let someone inside here. Okay, for example, the Ministry of Health. You don't want a electrical engineer like myself being your Minister of Health. That doesn't make sense. Ministry of Energy. You don't want a doctor being the Minister of Energy, which is why we want to employ subject matter experts to run these individual departments. I believe Joseph has a slide that he'll be showing to you later on. But to get back to the original question, our strategy is to reach Jamaicans in Jamaica, Jamaicans who are by way of the Jamaican Constitution and the representation of the People's Act via social media. So we're talking to people on Instagram, we're talking to people on Twitter, we're talking to people on WhatsApp, we're talking to people on Facebook, we're going everywhere. So nowhere is off limits. If you're listening to this right now, we need you. If you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, if you're on Twitter and YouTube right now, we need you. We need you to come in, join the UIC, step up, volunteer to become a councillor, become an MP, volunteer like myself to assist the UIC, for example, run these live events, volunteer to go into the streets and talk to people, to manage our social media pages, to manage our websites, create contents. We need more people and we need you. So I hope that answers or a bit of our strategy for how we're going to be employing MPs. I don't want to get into too much detail because you understand the problems with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Devon. Wonderful. I know there's a couple of people waiting to get in. So back to the agricultural question, Mr. Patterson.
Sure. So the question is, what is the plan for agriculture in terms of development of Jamaica? Well, there are three things you need in any country if you're going to be a solid country. One, you need water security. The other one is food security, and the other is energy security. The UIC is very committed to building an infrastructure in Jamaica that allows and encourages and facilitates us to become a very focused country on water collection and water management in a way that it will ensure that we're never short of water. And we want to engage in what is known as permaculture, where we actually farm up the entire country so that you never have a shortage of food because all of our land is under some form of cultivation. Permaculture allows us to actually create food forests that are not managed day to day by individual actions, but perpetuates itself by virtue of how you cooperate with nature. So using new technologies in the area of permaculture and other forms of agriculture, particularly on the organic side, we're going to create an environment where all of Jamaica's arable lands are under production, and we're going to move to a different way of doing housing that will allow us to put more of our farmlands under cultivation. The key to all of this, though, is to ensure that we liberate Jamaicans by removing the artificial red tapes and the roadblocks that are placed in the way of Jamaicans by virtue of our politics and our politicians. The more power you give politicians over the people, is the less free the people are to be able to engineer their own solution. So the UIC wants to empower Jamaicans to farm, empower Jamaicans to think and create and produce, and not to have government continue to be a hindrance to their development and their economy. So the key is liberation by having the kinds of policies that switches the power from the politicians and put it squarely in the hands of the people.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joseph. Now, I see Robert also mentioning working with partners that have the resources that we need as it pertains to Devon's point. So that is also something that we need to highlight. If we can continue further with the questions, Joseph, because I know President, I'd love to hear from you on the vision of UIC.
Yeah.
I keep losing my question here. So from Faith Douglas, is there any country that is presently under a similar system proposed by the UIC?
Very good question, Faye Douglas. There are absolutely no country in the world that has all the elements of the UIC. What the UIC has done is to study carefully what is good governance and how various countries around the world has implemented aspects of good governance. For example, America has as its tenets the concept of protecting individual liberty. Unfortunately, in practice, they have not protected individual liberty, and each year they have moved further and further away from individual liberty and more towards collective totalitarianism or communism or socialism. We would like to move away from that. You have had countries like Singapore that has really done an excellent job of creating an effective free market economy, while at the same time undermining some elements of democracy. So again, we're going to take the good that we can find in a country like Singapore or in a country like the US or a country like Germany or like the Nordic countries. So we're pulling from all over the place. But the key element which the UIC has created, which is superior to almost, well, not to almost, but every country in the world, is that we're committed to protecting individual liberty. That's the foundation, that's the basis of our government, to protect individual liberty. So when you think about the UIC, you must first of all think about that every single Jamaican will have their life, their liberty, and their property protected, not just from thieves and criminals, but also from governments and politicians. We want to make sure that your right to self-determination is fully protected. Then we want to create on top of that now a system of governance that ensures effective checks and balances. So for example, under the current system, your prime minister has power over the Senate and over the House of Representatives and over the executive. Under the UIC system, that's no more. The Senate is independent, the House of Representatives is independent, and the executive is accountable to them both. So the executive branch of government brings forward a budget, brings forward policies, brings forward plans, and table those in the parliament, for example. The Senate and the House gets to seriously interrogate and investigate and question those policies and budgets and plans because they're independent of the executive and can ask the appropriate question in defense of their constituents. We're going to ensure, because we're using a 100% publicly funded system for candidates, that your candidate in your constituency is only beholden to you. They're only answerable to the constituents. They're not beholden to the prime minister or to the head of state or to the head of government. They're beholden just to you. And that will create the kind of dynamics and check and balance you want in governance to protect your interests. But above all, the Constitution will be so written that the government has clear parameters and clear limitations that they can't go beyond. And therefore, you are protected from bad governance. So if you elect a bad person, the Constitution by design will protect your interests, and that person can be removed because they seek to violate your personal liberties and your rights that are enshrined in the Constitution.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much, Joseph. There's a part pertaining to that question as well that I'll like to direct to one of the other vice presidents. But allow me to just welcome our chairman, Mr. Humphrey Sutherland. He's joining us now. Welcome, Mr. Sutherland. Good to have you with us as usual. I know you're a very strident, very committed member of the UIC family. You're a guiding light. We appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. I'll also like to welcome Mrs. Carmina Brooks, who is joining us as well. As it pertains to that additional section of the question, Joseph, someone is trying to find out, will there be provisions included to accommodate exceptions to the rule due to extenuating circumstances such as natural disasters, acts of God, acts of war, etc., in terms of the government model you're highlighting here?
Oh, well, yes, again, but it will be very conditional and very limited. So for example, in a matter of a disaster, the government is in a position to organize the country to respond to the disaster, but it will not be in a position to take away your individual rights. So we're building a country where your government must lead, not command. And that's very important. Almost every human being in case of emergencies, without even government action, is willing to come together and work together. We do not want to create a dictatorship under any pretext. We must always protect the right of the individual to choose for themselves what they think is best for them. And the best leaders are those who can use reason to get people to do what is right, as opposed to using command. We have to understand that the command principle is not very healthy. However, force is always an option when it has to deal with you violating another person's right. So if you choose to violate a person's life or their liberty or their property, then of course the state is empowered by law to defend the rights of the citizens whom you seek to violate, and vice versa. But outside of that, the state must respect your right, and the Constitution must do that. The current Constitution, by the way, might have wording suggesting that it protects your rights, but really, the state is sovereign over you, and the Queen of England is sovereign over the state. That's the current Constitution. In the UIC Constitution, you, the individual, are sovereign. You're a sovereign entity that must be respected by all other entities, and you, of course, have a responsibility to respect others as well.
Wonderful.
You're muted, Winston.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Joseph. I think keep back it up. I was thanking you for expounding on the vision of the UIC. It's always educating, listening to you, and hearing what you have to share. Speaking of education, there is a quasi question about how the UIC will accomplish educating or re-educating members as to the way the UIC policies will work. So what is our educational drive?
So Devon earlier on kind of alluded to it. We're going to go on an extensive education campaign where we're going to engage Jamaicans over the course of the next several months into the next 2 years and bring everybody up to speed on the new mentality which we need to have. The mentality that says that you have a right to your life, liberty, and property, but you also have a right to be productive and a responsibility to be productive and to engage in helping to build the new Jamaica that we want. So, for example, in the UIC, we do not say anybody is exempted from taxes. You cannot have a country where anybody is going to participate in having a safe environment, a clean environment, an orderly environment, well-maintained public parks and streets and street light, a good police service, an excellent and accessible and affordable justice system, and then at the same time tell some people that they're exempted from taxes. So what the UIC is going to do is to have a very low tax rate of only 10%, but have every Jamaican from whatever income sources they have pay 10% of their income into the kitty so that we have the funds to provide the kind of Jamaica that we all want and all deserve. So it's very important that on the one hand, we talk about protecting your rights and your liberties, and on the other hand, asking you to be responsible in contributing to protecting and preserving the quality, high standard of living that we need in Jamaica.
What I'd like to ask Vice President Mackenzie Williams, how will 10% work when the government is spending about 45% in total taxation right now, very close to 50%? How will 10%, what amounts to a total of 20% taxation, how will that work, Vice President Mackenzie Williams?
Well, I'm going to ask, to be honest with you, I'm going to ask our president to get into that a little more for me, because I think he expounded on those things so well. Just all the 10% that we have for GCT. But let me just give you a briefing. The GCT that we'll be collecting, that GCT will be used to cover services to protect the poor, to bring needed services to those persons.
You're muted, Paulette.
To bring needed services to those persons that are vulnerable in means of education, health. So it's basically GCT is a very dedicated tax to help the poor. The other tax, which is the income tax, that income tax will be used for other services that we will be able to provide for Jamaica to help ensure that we have the kind of Jamaica that we need. But I'm going to ask the president to assist me in this regard, because he so eloquently always explained how we deal with our tax system.
No problem, Paulette. So basically, the OIC has two pillars to its tax program. One is a 10% income tax, and the other one is a 10% sales tax that we currently call the GCT. So the 10% income tax will be on the income that you earn or that you receive from any source. So whatever income source, whether it's remittances or some kind of money coming down from your parents or wealth transfer, it's 10% tax on income from all sources. This 10% income tax is going to provide all the basic public goods and services that we need, such as a strong and effective police force, a very accessible and affordable justice system, street lights, good roads, good highways, sidewalks, street lights, as I said before, street names, and all the basic public services, water, electricity coming into your community, internet access, all the infrastructure you need to be able to succeed. However, the UIC also understands that for years, the current system of governance has left a large percentage of Jamaicans behind. Many Jamaicans are currently in a very poverty-stricken situation. Even though you see them out there jumping up and down and participating in the electoral process, many are going back homes to very, very dilapidated homes, lacking proper sanitary facilities, lacking a decent roof, and all kind of just substandard living. So the UIC is going to embark on a very ambitious program to ensure that no Jamaican live below a certain standard when it comes on to housing and having access to quality education for our children, having access to the appropriate nutrition, a breakfast and lunch program for our children, having access to decent health care. So we have dedicated 10% GCT to completely address the need of bringing our lower income Jamaicans up to a certain standard. But we're not just giving away anything for free. We don't call any of this free, because paired with this program or included in this program is a works program. So I want to put people to work so that if you're poor and in a bad situation, we want to help you to build your skills and access working opportunities that you can also contribute in paying income tax. And of course, you'll be paying your own sales tax, which will further build up the human capital in our country. Because I tell you this, more than anything else, if we don't address the human capital gap in Jamaica, nothing else matters. We need to have Jamaicans who are highly educated, more Jamaicans who are highly educated, who can think, who can reason, who can be a part of a meaningful discussion about good governance, who can understand the need to fight against and to oppose corruption and to hold our politicians and leaders and even business and corporate sector accountable. And for that, we have to have highly trained, highly skilled, highly intelligent citizens, and that means on a mass level. So we must follow the path of a Singapore, for example, where the vast majority of their people are highly skilled in math, language, science, technology, and able to reason and participate in the discourse of national development.
Thank you very much, Joseph. So it sounds like you're saying that the UIC plan for Jamaica is a holistic plan that not only focuses on changing the political structure, the legislative structure of the country, but also to look at the developmental facet, to look at developing its people, developing its resources, and making the country productive at a microeconomic level to grow to the macroeconomic level and earn our way out of this poverty that we now live in. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we're going to achieve what Michael Manley hoped for. You know, Michael Manley desired and wanted a Jamaica that was more equal and equitable, but he went about it in a way that wasn't as effective as we're about to do. What we're going to do here, we're going to make sure that we provide an economic system that works, a governance model that works, and we're going to protect and support and encourage and lift up those who have been left out of the Jamaican economy for too long.
Wonderful. A question from Nessa Teacher. As it relates to developing our own constitution, does the UIC have a rough draft as yet?
Very good question. Yes, the UIC has a rough draft of the constitution that we're continuing to work on. The constitution will be an incredible document that when you read it, it's going to supersede anything the world has ever seen. As Dr. Kerr mentioned earlier on, that what we're about to do is revolutionary. We're going to demonstrate to the entire world what good governance really means, what it means to truly liberate the human being, to give man his fundamental right to be free and create an environment where freedom reigns and where that freedom propels us to become one of the most productive areas on earth. And we're going to take a people who has been disadvantaged, marginalized, and suppressed by colonial forces for years, and then after that by their own kind, by way of bad governance. The UIC is going to liberate the Jamaican mind and talent like never seen before. And why? Because we know that the only thing standing between us and great success is bad governance.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joseph. And so we have another question coming in. So while those questions keep streaming in, let me just direct this one to you from Lee Webb. Could you speak to the possibility of an agency commission to investigate or prosecute corruption?
Oh, very good question. Well, you know, the truth is, Jamaica has had a very, very long history of corruption, beginning from the 1940s and accelerating in the 1960s, down through the 70s and 80s to today. If we were ever to try to truly investigate all of those, it would take us some 100 years to get at the bottom of it. However, what we can do now, when the UIC is elected, we can first of all put in place the structures that is going to make corruption very difficult. And very importantly, set the bar very high in terms of the penalties for committing corruption. You want to make sure that when a politician, for example, thinks of committing a corrupt act, he considers the huge costs to himself and his family should he choose to participate in such an activity. And that alone must deter him. But outside of that, you want to have the checks and balances, which makes it difficult to even participate. For example, currently, our Prime Minister has exorbitant powers over the three branches of our government. He controls the executive, he controls the Senate, and he controls the House of Representatives. Just think about that. You might recall some time ago, he tried to use undated resignation letters to control senators, to make sure that they in no way can vote against what he wants to be done. Now that is very dangerous. The same Prime Minister wants to impose a national identification system that requires a lot of data about you, including your biodata, biometrics data. And if you read the act under which he would do that, it gives him enormous powers over that branch and agency, while also subletting the information to foreign powers. You might also realize that the Prime Minister commands the majority in the House of Representatives. And because of his ability to appoint and dismiss ministers at will from that same house, everyone in that house cowers to him. So what we have is a 5-year form of dictatorship that we have to get rid of. And by the UIC separating the branches to make the Senate independent and the House independent of each other and independent of the executive, now corruption will be very hard to perform. And if it is done, it will be very easy to identify and to prosecute. So it's all about system design. If you have a company which has good internal controls, it will be a very well-run company. The same is true for a country.
Two things stands out, Joseph. The Prime Minister with the enormous power that he wields, including the power to toy with the nation for weeks, to draw us out in the middle of a pandemic to vote, to dismiss ministers at his leisure. Why hasn't he dismissed those implicated in a corroborated way in corrupt practices, including 3 very prominent ministers in his current crop of ministers and in his former cabinet?
You know, there's someone who said power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when you have the power to dismiss at will, you also have the power not to dismiss. And we want to take away that power from the Prime Minister. We want to put in place the structure, which I think the caller or writer is asking, will we have a structure that will ensure that individuals who engage in corruption in government can be easily identified and prosecuted? And yes, that is what you need. Take away that power from the individual and vest that power in the system. So the system automatically triggers and automatically keeps people in line. And if they do fall out of line, the system prescribes severe penalties, which deters that kind of action.
Wonderful, wonderful, Mr. President. Another question from Robert Reed. Do you occupy fixed office space in Mandeville?
No, we don't have a fixed office office place in Mandeville. We have an head office here in Northeast St. Elizabeth. But you can always contact us, and our vice presidents are always traveling. We have a vice president in Kingston. You can always reach her. We have a vice president in Westmoreland. You can always reach him. We have myself here in St. Elizabeth, and you have Devon, who covers St. Catherine. So reach out to us. The good thing is, today the electronic media allows us to be everywhere. So you don't have to come to an office and, waste bus fare and transportation and all of that. Just reach out to us electronically, and we'll be able to talk to you and work with you.
Thank you, Joseph. I want to take the opportunity to welcome other members and associates joining us. Lamore, I see you here with us. Welcome. It's always a pleasure having you. I see Rain is also here with us. Welcome. It's always a pleasure having you. We look forward to hearing you share with us a little later on. In the meantime, another question from NASA teacher. As it relates to our current and existing debts, which more than likely will raise by the time the UIC take office, how does the UIC plan to pay off such, and in what time frame you think this can be done?
Yeah, the more debt a country gets into, the more difficult it is to pay. As you can see, we're a part of Jamaica. I signed on to a monetary system, an international monetary system that is based on increasing debt and living more and more in debt. So they encourage countries to run deficit budgets and to create a situation where they borrow at interest from private banks, locally and internationally. The UIC is opposed to that. And the way we're going to deal with the debt is, first of all, by extracting ourselves from that monetary system and going to a true free money system or banking system, whereby the country does not depend on private interest-based debt to operate. As a government, you have the ability to, and I'm speaking very carefully now, and I'm making it simple, but it's not simplistic. As a government, you do not have to borrow money at interest to run a country. As long as you produce enough money, print enough money, but making sure that that is in line with the country's productivity. So you match the volume of money you print with the productivity of the country, and you have small increases in money supply to match the small and gradual increase in productivity. That's one. Once you also liberate the economy, you now create more economic activity, which will push up your production as well as your productivity, which increases your tax base. That's two. And then, of course, beyond that, you want to make sure that you do not run government deficits so that you're creating a surplus that you can use to pay down your debt, then eventually become debt-free. Under a UIC government, we're going to produce a debt-free country, but it's not going to be quick or easy. So we're going to do it in a strategic way. We also have to look at the composition of our debt. And our debt is primarily localized. Most of our debt, up until recently, is mostly with our private banks, which was created during the 1990s under the high interest rate regime, when certain persons run with it and created a lot of debt. We also have some hidden debts that the recent government that has now been elected has created that we're not even clear on yet. That will become more apparent as we go through the remainder of this year. The UIC is going to renegotiate a lot of those debts because a lot of them are actually illegal debts. There are debts that were incurred illegally and placed on the backs of Jamaicans. And this is a really sensitive issue, and why the UIC wants to cap the tax rate at 10% income tax and 10% GCT, so that no future government can simply run with it, because they're going to have to live within the budget constraint of our local productivity. So as productive as we are, you get that level of 10%. So we're going to cap the government spending within the framework that we're talking about. We're going to change the monetary policy under which we operate so that we no longer borrow money at interest from private banks, but actually use the power of the state to produce money. But we're going to put it on a system of algorithms that make sure that it's not left up to human discretion, but formula driven, so that we only produce as much money as our productive capacity allows. a little technical, but I think you can understand the gist of it. And just so you know, I'm a chartered professional accountant, CPA, for the last 25 years. And so I truly understand the monetary system and the economics behind it.
I was just going to highlight that if you didn't, Joseph, so everybody watching us live streaming across social media pages understands that you know what you're talking about. And just to point out that we have several gifted accountants, financial persons in the UIC. So we are very focused on especially that aspect. Not only that aspect, but especially that aspect, because we're a developing country. Controlling debt, eliminating deficit spending are one of the key pillars to developing and moving that country forward. Another question is, will the banking system remain the same as it is now under your leadership?
No,
who wants to tell us?
Sorry, Winston. What
I was going to ask one to take that, but it sounds like you're on it. So go right ahead.
Yeah, I'll jump on it. No, the banking system will not remain the same. The current banking system is designed to allow the big banks to extract as much money as possible out of Jamaicans. As you can see, the Prime Minister promised us 4%, 5% growth in 4 years, 5% in 4 years, which we did not even come close to achieving. Yet the big banks made billions in profits and were able to boast about it, which means it's not that the growth is not there. The opportunity, the wealth is in Jamaica, but it's in the wrong hands. And it is being siphoned off. It's being siphoned off, and Jamaicans are being left in the dark and in the dust as well. The UIC is going to revamp the banking system so that we have more competition, true customer protection, and we're going to now have the government create an environment that allows more access to capital outside of the normal big banks that will then allow small and micro enterprises to be able to grow quickly, significantly, and access the technology and resources outside of Jamaica to build new and effective industries within Jamaica that will create jobs, raise our income levels, and allow Jamaicans to enjoy a higher standard of living. It's truly time for us to be free, and we have to liberate ourselves from bad governance, bad policies, and a system that is designed actually to keep the majority poor and enrich a few at the expense of everyone else.
Joseph, you have me thinking back to college economics, micro and macro economics, where the saying is if you stimulate the micro economy, you then bring growth to the macro economy, meaning if small businesses grow, the country's GDP grows. Now, if you're saying that, and also that UIC will look at revamping the banking system to give small businesses more access to financing, which means every Jamaican who is a natural entrepreneur and who has a credible idea will be able to execute that idea. Then it sounds like you're planning to change the entire economic sphere of Jamaica. Isn't that dangerous?
Well, it's dangerous for those at the top because it means that the gravy train is over for them. But it's really great for those at the bottom. Because right now, what we have is a system designed to regulate small and micro businesses out of the market. It's to regulate away competition. That is the goal of the current system. And it's not just Jamaica alone doing it. It's a global phenomenon where the aim is to make the majority of us dependent on a job, dependent on begging somebody for some help, because they have made it so cumbersome and so expensive and so difficult for you to set up and run small and micro businesses that it's only the very rich and powerful control the corporate sector. And then they have a pick of employees, they have a pick of the resources, and they have the bulk of the wealth in the end. We're going to reduce and shrink that wealth gap by basically liberating the nation, liberating the small man, liberating the average entrepreneur who wants to try something but cannot get here because of all the roadblocks that have been placed in front of him by his own government. We're going to truly become a government of the people, by the people and for the people by simply getting government out of the way so that the ordinary persons can produce, sell, and enjoy the fruit of their labor without the threat of government extracting taxes from them unnecessarily, or the threat of government putting red tape around them unnecessarily, or government simply protecting the interest of big business and monopoly.
Wonderful, Joseph. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, sorry, Mr. Wright. I just want to ask this question though. How do you think that the international community will respond to us when we do all of these things for Jamaica? Because I think sometimes others have interest in Jamaica not excelling the way Jamaica should excel. How can we deal with that matter of international persons?
You're very right, you know, Paulette. We live in a global context and a geopolitical environment that we have to be careful of. And earlier I referred to Michael Manley, an exceptional leader that Jamaica had before. And I want to refer to him again. The mistake Mr. Manley made in his social engineering was that he decided to create an adversarial relationship with our closest trading partner at the time, and still is, the United States of America. The UIC, by virtue of our principle of protecting individual liberty, has a significant statement that we can make to the US that will allow us to be aligned on key areas while allowing Jamaica to progress and develop. It's all about diplomacy. It's all about understanding how to work with your neighbors, with other countries, in a way that protects your interests. As a student of history, I took the time to study carefully how Lee Kuan Yew navigated the global geopolitics of his time, where he had to fight with both the communists on one hand, China being just next door to him, and Russia, and also dealing with the Americans and the British on the other hand. And one key thing that Mr. Lee Kuan Yew did, which I truly admire, he said to all of them, in different ways and in diplomatic terms, that I'm here to trade with both of you. Let's trade and not fight. Of course, that's easier said than done, but he was able to navigate that diplomatically so that he stayed out of the main fight while systematically building his people. And here what he did, which we're going to do, and this is key, Paulette. We're going to not only liberate the Jamaican people and facilitate them to achieve the economic growth in their personal lives, in their communities and nationally, we're also going to invest in ensuring that every single child gets the quality education that they need. And this is key, a very liberating education, one which first of all allows our people to truly appreciate our Blackness, our Afrocentricness, and our true history, and our drive and desire to be free men and women. We're also going to ensure that our students are no longer afraid of mathematics and science, but embrace them as the tools and the keys to unlocking the future. We're way behind that. We're so far behind that it looks dismal to recover, but a UIC government is going to inspire private investment in education that will allow us to have different kinds of schools that meets the needs of our students and accelerate our progress. So we're going to accelerate the development of our human capital while freeing our existing population to produce at maximum capacity, while negotiating with our private bankers and international lenders to create the space for us to do that, and at the same time maintaining good relations with our geopolitical partners in the US, in China, and the rest of the world, so that Jamaica can succeed and not pick unnecessary fights and get into unnecessary wars, but rather build trade relations everywhere we can with everyone that we can.
Following up on that, sorry, Mr. Rhett. I'm thinking, because not only will we have international persons, but locally, because sometimes our greatest enemy is within, trying to disrupt what you're trying to do for Jamaica, because it's not their idea. How do we plan to talk to those people as well? Sorry,
Yeah, and
Mr. President, you again.
I know you're asking these questions because you want to make sure our listeners hear the answers. So thank you very much for that, Paulette. We expect to be opposed. We're not naive. We expect to be opposed domestically and internationally. We have been trained to be opponents of each other. That's why the colonial masters gave us the divide and conquer system where we fight each other as tribes. Two parties are so fighting each other as tribes. The UIC is going to strive for unity, but be pragmatic about it. We're going to have to fight with our fellow brothers and sisters by virtue of education. We're going to take the high ground and focus on education and clarification, and we're going to win the moral argument. We're going to show our fellow Jamaicans that slavery has been continued. It never ended in 1838. It did not end when we got the vote in 1944, and it certainly did not end in 1962 when they gave us a fake independence. And it has not ended with a 49-14 balance of power in the current parliament. What we have now is simply a continuation of the slave master economy where a few gets to extract the wealth of the many. The UIC will stop that, and we will stop that by educating and enlisting the Jamaican public to join hands with us in fighting for true liberty and true freedom for all Jamaicans.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just ask Devon really quickly, Mr. Vice President, Mr. Thompson, Devon Thompson, to just quickly share with us how we're doing across the other social media spaces. Devon?
Winston, when it's finished, I'd like to comment. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Carr, definitely.
Hey guys, I'm here.
So we're doing Devon.
Good. What was the question? You're asking how we're doing across the other social media platforms?
Yes.
So we have people logged in on Instagram. We have some on Facebook and a few on YouTube. But Facebook is really, really active and people are really engaged.
Wonderful. We like hearing that, and we love the inquisitiveness that is being shown in the UIC program. Keep monitoring for us, and any question come across those, feel free to shoot them over so we can help get those answers out to those who need it. Mr. Carr, you wanted to comment. Please, go right ahead.
Yes, I am very heartened to hear of the importance that is being attached to education and awareness. It's going to be decisive. The matter of communication is a science, and your efforts to build awareness has to be guided by the science. You need a good assessment of what knowledge and understanding people have, the issues that are in their minds, and therefore in your program of outreach to be able to respond to those things. The questions that are coming now are an example of some of the issues that people have in trying to find a way forward out of the system. It's a challenge, but if it is scientifically done, a proper assessment of people's knowledge and understanding, the channels that they receive information through, etc. Once you have that, I think your impact is going to be significant.
Thank you very much, Sir Robert. Excellent commentary there. Communication is key. One of the things I'm very excited about is that each and every day we're attracting new members with some exceptional skills and talents. And as you know, we're a grassroots movement, so we don't come to you, with millions of dollars in our individual pockets, or I shouldn't say million. Nowadays we have to talk about billions. So we are ordinary Jamaicans. Some of us are, close to unemployed, and some of us are employed, and some of us are business owners, and so on. But with all of us coming together and lending a hand, lending our skills, lending our talents, and contributing our small amounts or large amounts, we'll be able to buy, create, produce what we need to achieve the desired outcomes. So this is going to be an effort where we have to really join hands together, all of us. And some of us are far more skilled than others in some areas. So we'll leverage our skills, leverage our talents, leverage our resources, and make it happen. Back to you, Mr. Wright.
Mr. President, I was just about to make a plug for the fact that we are a grassroots organization, movement. And so the hands and the hearts of Jamaicans with their finances, we want you to be a part of the movement. We want you to contribute to the movement because we together are going to be able to take Jamaica and move Jamaica forward. So come with the ideas, come with your talents, and come with your gifts, and come with your finances. We together can build the Jamaica that we all want to see. And we want to see a clean Jamaica, an orderly Jamaica, a safe Jamaica. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Wonderful. And if I can add to that, if we look at the article last week in Jamaica Observer, we can see the millions upon billions that were piled onto the two political parties, the two so-called main political parties. One company alone gave $31 million, each party. So that's $62 million in total. UIC is not funded by any of the special interest money. Okay, UIC is a grassroots movement, and we do not want the consideration of you have to do something for me for this money. So we accept the small gifts, and we're not opposed to working with big interest either, but they should not seek to co-opt our message. They should not seek to divert us from our course of empowering the masses, not just the elite few. But we work with everyone as long as you buy into our message, as long as you're willing to support the masses, have a love for your fellow men, and want this country to prosper, not just yourself.
And
that's a very
Mr. Wright,
point. A very good point.
I was just going to say that if they can see the value of the output, they will see how beneficial it will be for their organizations, because many organizations suffer for lack of intellectuals and persons who can support the systems. So when a big organization invests in the UIC with the kind of vision that we have, they're actually investing in themselves, investing in a country that will be able to support them with human capital that will be able to support the growth of their organization as well. So
excellent.
Yes.
Definitely.
No,
And so Camille, sorry, Joseph, go right ahead, please.
Before you go, Mr. Wright, it's a very important message here that we need to understand. We must ask ourselves the question, why is it that the major donors give the amount of monies that they do to the two traditional parties? It simply means that they want to control who you have as an option to vote for. Everybody in Jamaica knows that no party can win an election in the current Jamaica without having huge cash resources. Everybody knows that. And so what has happened is your choices have been limited by the funding provided by these big money interests to two major parties. So you're going out to vote, but you're simply voting for the choices they give you. Now we're inviting you to give yourself a choice by joining, volunteering, and funding the UIC so that you now don't just have to vote for the choices big money give you, but rather the choice you give yourself.
Sure, and campaign financing is a big topic to delve in, and I promise I'll bring you back to that. Let me go over to Camille. I haven't heard from her in a while, and I know she will have something to say. Camille?
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Question, this was one of the questions from our WhatsApp group. It said, what about the policies that have already been put in place that has allowed certain foreign nationals to enjoy privileges not afforded to the citizens of Jamaica? Will they or can these policies be revisited and revised, or is it a situation where those policies are set in stone and grandfathered into future government entities, whereas they cannot be altered, changed, or vacated?
Yeah, it's a very tricky thing when you have to revisit agreements that were reached between governments and our multinational partners in different ways. But the UIC is committed to a simple principle that no foreign entity or person should be given an advantage over a local Jamaican entity or person. So whatever benefits we have given to others, we must give the same benefits to Jamaicans. And in fact, any investor coming into our country should never have an advantage over a local Jamaican by virtue of government policy. They may have an advantage by virtue of the amount of money they have. They might have an advantage based on the technology they have, but they should not get an advantage which is given to them by the government over the local Jamaican. That being said, there would have been agreements in place that currently disadvantages Jamaican and give away our assets and our resources to others. We're going to have to renegotiate those to the best of our ability. I can't tell you all the details of that right now, but I can assure you that you're going to have a very tough negotiator working on your behalf in the person of myself and our team at the UIC. We're going to carefully look at all agreements that were reached with other entities and countries and make sure that it's either working for Jamaica or it is reworked to better benefit Jamaica. Sometimes you can create a win-win situation with your partners. They might not like the new deal completely, but it may be a deal that is better than no deal. And we're going to ensure that we create the best deal possible for our people.
It's actually a possibility to renegotiate these deals because administrations of past have done it. As a matter of fact, the previous JLP administration had renegotiated the one very large deal. And before that, in the earlier administration, there was a renegotiation of several financial deals. So what the UIC is saying as it relates to that is that we won't be selective in what we renegotiate because it suits our political expedience. We'll do it because it suits the overall economic picture of the country, the overall general push to move the country forward.
Another question, Mr. Patterson, regarding marijuana production, sales, and ultimately possession. On what scale does the UIC have tentative guidelines already in place for the small farmers and small businesses? Not only in the case of marijuana production, but across the board. Will there be guidelines, workshops implemented regarding the growth, harvesting, and production of marijuana in order to assist those small businesses and large businesses equally as needed? And then I have a second part to the exportation, but I'll pause there so you can respond.
Sure. You know, a lot of what we want to do in Jamaica, we don't have to depend so much on government, you know, to do the training and develop guidelines and so on, except for, of course, the basic rule of law and certain regulatory framework. But first of all, we have to liberate Jamaicans to produce whatever they want to produce, so long as it is honest and is not harmful in you know, somebody using force or fraud against somebody else. What we want is for example, marijuana is a plant. It is a God-given plant, and it should not have been made illegal in the first place. And now we should not have regulations which give some people an advantage over others in terms of the government giving them that advantage. Any advantage you have should be based on the fact that you have decided to be more creative, you know, more effective, more efficient in what you're doing. That being said, I believe that there are many Jamaicans, home and abroad, who can bring exceptional approaches to market, that they can deal with processing and production of any product, including marijuana, and then take those products to market and launch them locally and overseas. The UIC is going to create a liberating environment that allows you to do that. And the real purpose of government in all of this is protect you from anybody using force or fraud to prevent you from achieving your honest objective, your good business idea, and your decision to invest in a particular product or service for offering. So the key for us is protecting your life, your liberty, and your property, protecting your intellectual property, and protecting you in the course of developing your products to take them to market. not in dictating what you can do, and not in trying to control a particular industry and channeling it one way or the other. We just want to give the many brilliant Jamaicans here and abroad the opportunity and the freedom to express themselves in the ways that they can in all kinds of business ventures.
If I can chime in, Mr. President, if we look at the marijuana industry in other jurisdictions or closest neighbor to the West, for example, in two major regions, it accounts for what was reported to be up to 30% of those states, particular states, GDP. Now, for those large countries to be earning 30% of your GDP from that plant suggests that Jamaica, who was more involved with it earlier than these jurisdictions have been, to not have the framework to do that is an indictment on our political system, not to mention our political leaders. Now, if we look at the current system that we have and the miscarriage of justice against those who lobbied for the decriminalization and the opening up of the markets, we see they were bamboozled, to use that term, and correct me if I'm wrong, and totally shut out of that market, where, as you said, it was set up so specific persons are given advantage and therefore able to benefit. For example, the license were priced outside of the price range of persons who actively lobbied Parliament for the decriminalization and the right to commercially plant this crop. So for us, it says a lot about the consideration for farmers, for agriculture, especially small-scale farmers. A proper framework in the course of good governance would be to set up a legislative framework that allows persons who freely wants to get into the market to do so, as Joseph said, without force or fraud, to bring a product from it, a full product range from the entire plant to market and benefit from it in a national way, instead of a few who will take the byproducts, the pharmacology from it, export it to another jurisdiction, and then reap the benefit, instead of us just getting the trickle-down effect of it. So
there's a systemic problem, you say, Winston, and my fellow Jamaicans listening, a systemic problem where we have been brainwashed into thinking that we need government to do a whole lot of legislation and regulations around everything in our lives. And there's no need for that. The bottom line, if you think about it in life, is whether or not somebody is using force or fraud to take away your life, to take away your freedom, or to take away your property. And if a person is not using force or fraud to do any of that, leave them alone. So we just need to leave Jamaicans alone and allow the people, allow all of us, all of you, the freedom to think and conceive of ideas and create and produce and invent and innovate and bring to market the wonderful things that only your dynamic human brain can think of. We need to limit government and pull government out of this powerful position where it is able to cripple you, where it is able to determine who among us must be able to go forward and who we're going to keep out of markets and so on. That whole system needs to be done away with. There are so many Jamaicans who have been wasted because of this kind of government. And so many of you who have been run out of your own country because of this kind of government. And so many countries who are way ahead of us because it is so much easier for their citizens to think, create, innovate, and produce without having this big, heavy hand of government stifling them and robbing them of the opportunity. We need to get rid of this system. And I just want to keep it very straightforward and simple with you. A UIC government is going to liberate Jamaica. It's going to liberate you so that you can produce and create and share your abilities with Jamaicans and the rest of the world. And that's the bottom line, really.
Thank you, Joseph. I have a question holding, but I see this question that speaks about the cockpit country, which I believe is along the lines of agriculture that we talk about. And it's a very topical issue, because it is one of the issues that persons seem to have forgotten going to the polls, the travesty of how the government dealt with this situation. So let me just bring it up. And not specifically you, Joseph, but any one of the other members who want to take this, whether Devon or Paulette.
Sure.
So it's about the cockpit country, said, and it's a question from Faye Douglas. The cockpit country, including a small 123, is untouchable and should remain so regardless of who forms the government. What is UIC policy on the above mentioned statement?
Well, let me just chime in a bit, because I know the UIC takes great pride in our natural resources. And the president spoke about agriculture and the infrastructure for housing, that we want to preserve some of our agricultural lands and not to engage in development. And so we're going to have a platform of how houses are provided and built out. So for that reason, also the cockpit country is just one of those natural resources that Jamaica has that is of significance to the people. And we do agree with our person to say that this should be protected. It should be a protected region, and it doesn't matter who forms the government. It should not be destroyed. It should not be exploited. So the UIC is committed to protect the natural resources of Jamaica and the cockpit country, no less.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
Winston, could I say something on this?
Yes, Robert, please.
Yeah. You may or may not know, but this is my area of expertise. I was responsible for establishing protected areas in Jamaica in the 90s, including the Blue and Jonker Mountains National Park, which is now a UNESCO World Heritage Center. Yeah.
Yes.
In fact, when we were in the process of establishing that national park in the Blue Mountains, there were prospecting leases for copper, gold, and limestone up to nearly 6,000 feet above sea level. And we were successful in countering the mining efforts there. The person in charge of mining at the time said that if we find gold, we can always use the gold and buy water. Now, that is the same kind of thinking that has been transferred to the cockpit country. The cockpit country should have been the next protected area in the second phase, and they shut it down. They shut down the project. One of the main reasons why is that the best reserves of bauxite are in the cockpit country. Now, in a nutshell, the cockpit country represents the kidney and lungs of the country. All the major rivers of middle Jamaica, north and south, exit from the cockpit country. This is the largest wet limestone region in the Caribbean, and it's a biodiversity hotspot. The government has tried a three-card trick, declaring an area protected, but really they have defined a protected mining area, which impacts and will impact seriously the whole assets, all the assets of the area, including the livelihoods. So we could talk more about this at another time, but if that goes ahead, given that the future wars may be fought over water, not oil, the cockpit country is providing nearly 40% of the potable water in middle of Jamaica. We might find ourselves being penny wise and many pounds foolish should we go ahead with mining in the area. So that's really going to be a major area of confrontation in the future of the country.
It wouldn't be a surprise to me, Robert, if we remain penny wise and pound foolish in Jamaica, because the way politics is designed, it's a very short-term horizon normally. And that is why we need to change the system so badly, because you cannot trust your country to a short-term view by way of somebody looking at 5 years, 4 years, winning another election and knowing that they might lose and then they're gone. So their goal is to extract as much as possible within the shortest possible time. That's why the UIC system design is so important. I've gotten a cue now from our technology controller here that it's time for me to share my screen with you and walk you through the governance model. Do I have permission, Mr. Host, Mr. Wright, to do so?
By all means, go right ahead. You're the one we're here to listen to.
So I'm going to share my screen with you now and briefly walk you through a bit of the governance structure that the UIC is putting forward. And hopefully we'll have some time to take some questions on that as well. So here we go. Let's see if it works. All right, so I've shared my screen. I'm now going to make it full screen so you can see full. Is it clear, Mr. Wright?
Loud and clear.
Excellent. All right, so as you know, the United Independence Congress is a new political party. Our symbol is the handshake. It is suggesting a coming together. As our name suggests, we want to unite Jamaica. We understand that we all have independent minds, so we're united independent thinkers. And we want to move away from partisan politics. So we want a Congress where we sit around the table as independent thinkers, share ideas, debate and discuss, and reach conclusions that are in the best interest of Jamaica and not be focused on trying to achieve what is best for our parties. And so in a UIC Jamaica, while parties may exist, they will not play any significant role in the political process because parties will not be able to field candidates or fund candidates. Communities will be able to do that. The purpose of the UIC is to bring good governance and create a new Jamaica. Of course, you'd have seen recently that the existing government has stolen our phrase about New Jamaica. So now we have to say good governance for a real new Jamaica. So you can add real in front of that. Our vision is to create a Jamaica that brings out the best in all its people. And that's at the core of our message, bringing out the best in all of our people. And the way to bring out the best in all of our people is to respect our people, is to trust our people, is to give our people their true freedom, something that they have been robbed of from more than 400 years ago by slavery. And now we want to completely free and liberate Jamaica and Jamaicans, and by extension, all our African brothers and sisters around the world, and every single human being on the face of the planet. Our mission in Jamaica is to create a non-partisan constitutional republic of Jamaica that protects your individual liberty and promotes personal responsibility. What is a non-partisan constitutional republic? Well, first of all, the word non-partisan means we're going to get rid of the divide and conquer system. We're no longer going to be divided by party or party color or by race or by religion or by linguistics or anything else. We're going to be a united nation where we embrace our differences and we allow our differences, our different ideas, or different personal or cultural norms and preferences to be cooperated in a way that reflects out of many one people. We're going to have a constitution that is reflective of a republic, which means we will not have a queen or a governor general over us, but instead we will respect the individuality of each Jamaican, the sovereignty of each Jamaican, and protect that sovereignty by every means necessary in our system. We'll protect your liberty to choose what you think is best for you, provided what you have chosen does not infringe on the life, liberty, and property of another person. And with this liberty comes personal responsibility, the responsibility to not only look out for yourself, but to respect the life, liberty, and property of your fellow men. Our values are grounded in the philosophy that everyone deserves an equal opportunity, that everyone has equal rights under the law, and that everyone should be treated justly. and not just be treated justly, but that you must have access to justice. So just like the police service is free to all Jamaican, meaning the police service should protect and respect your rights and protect you from criminals of all sorts. The justice system should be freely accessible to you so that you can address grievances and address any issues that you may have with your fellow Jamaican or anyone else. And that should be something which is affordable and not excessive, so that you can choose to go to the court as opposed to engaging in any form of violence against your fellow man. Again, our values are grounded in individual liberty and personal responsibility, but this can only exist in a safe, clean, and orderly environment. By safe, we mean you must be able to go about your work, go about your life, attend school, and play, knowing that you don't have to worry about criminals. You don't have to worry about anybody taking away your property, anybody enslaving you, or anybody in any way, shape, or form taking your life. And of course, you must be free to defend yourself if someone chooses to try to take those from you. We want a clean environment, clean in terms of the place not being dirty, but also clean and free of corruption. We want an orderly environment so that you can be efficient and effective. That's what the UIC is going to ensure we have in Jamaica. In short, our philosophy is that it is your natural right as a human being to be free. Therefore, the real moral justification, the rightful purpose of government is the protection of your life, your liberty, and your property. I can bet you have never heard that before from any party in Jamaica. You've never heard that in almost any other country, because governments of today believes that they have rights over your life and they're there to control and dictate to you. But no, the UIC knows and affirms that you have a right to your life, you have a right to your freedom, and you have a right to your property. And no government, no group, or no person should be allowed to take those from you by any way, shape, or form. Good governance, therefore, is a system that protects our individual liberty, that promotes personal responsibility, and provides you with a safe, clean, and orderly society. That is good governance, not all the other things you've heard about. This is the sure foundation that we're going to create in Jamaica, and therefore make Jamaica a truly great and prosperous society. A little about me. I was born on August 2nd, 1971 in Kingston to a single mother of 3. I was head boy for Spanish Town Secondary and Stats. I studied engineering, having gotten a scholarship from St. Andrew Technical to go to UTech. I taught physics, math, and engineering science at Kingston Technical High School. I worked as an engineer for the Sugar Company of Jamaica. I am married, I have 3 children, and for the last 25 years, I've enjoyed a great relationship with my wife, whom I met in high school. I served as a financial reporting director for the Canadian government. I served as a vice president of finance for. I'm the founder and president of Yes Jamaica, and of course the UIC. Both organizations are focused on lifting up Jamaica, one as a charity and the other one as a political movement. I'm on the board of a number of local and international organizations. One in particular is an international organization that works in over 75 countries in terms of helping low-income families achieve better results in their lives by accessing capital for microenterprise. I returned to Jamaica from Canada to live in St. Elizabeth in 2011. And since then, I've been focused on learning and understanding and creating a solution that will transform Jamaica from what it is to what it should be, a safe, clean, and orderly country that protects your life, your liberty, and your property, and guarantees you the opportunity to live, earn, and retire with dignity in your own country. Jamaica has been very unfortunate in that at independence, and before that, 18 years earlier, in 1944, we accepted a constitution that looks like this. On your screen right now, you're seeing a constitutional design where the Queen of England stands above you all. Just imagine what this has done to our psyche, how this has diminished us in our own eyes by telling us that somebody that doesn't look like most of us and which lives in another country is somewhat superior to the rest of us. And we talk about Her Royal Majesty's government and opposition. This is sad. This is sickening. This is truly a miscarriage of justice. How can those who have enslaved us, those who have robbed us, those who have raped us, in turn then give us a constitution and say, here's what you should follow for the rest of your life? What is worse is that our leaders accepted this and has imposed it on us for the last 75 years. This must stop. If you look closely at it, it puts the Queen at the top, and below her, it then says the people are allowed to vote for MPs. They vote for these on a partisan basis, and these persons are privately funded by the rich and wealthy, which means they're not working for you. They're working for those who have funded their campaign, and they only have to engage you in the theatrics of voting for them so that they're legitimized in robbing you. Here, it goes down to 63 partisan members of parliament through the constituencies. You follow the arrow from the 63 to the prime minister. The prime minister is the person who holds the majority of members in the house as their leader. You follow the arrows, you'll see that he controls the executive branch of government. He also controls the ministries, and he controls the Senate by being able to appoint the majority of the Senate. The Prime Minister controls the government, and by extension, the party that he is from, which controls him, and those who fund his party, therefore controls you and dictates everything in your life for the next 4 to 5 years. Of course, they have to do these things subtly. They can't be very obvious in the dominance that they have, because then it might cause a rebellion. So they must have a subtle system of control that systematically robs you, which is why 95% of Jamaicans today live below the poverty line of Americans, which is why 75% of our students every year graduate without the skills and competences needed to be highly productive or to be able to challenge the system that exists, which is why 60 to 70% of those who are somewhat proficient and competent will migrate to another country and leave Jamaica to the terrible hands of the few who form the elites at the top, and then they will continue to extract your wealth and continue to leave you in a degraded position. The UIC has a new model that will change the system. Let's have a look. Under the UIC Constitution of Jamaica, the Constitution of Jamaica is at the top. And just below it, you'll see where it says it's governed by the rule of law. What does this mean? Instead of having the whims of men or women in Parliament or Congress making decisions about your life every day and being able to change it as they see fit, the Constitution will embed certain core rights and principles that are unchanging. And so these rules will govern Jamaica for the rest of our existence. These rules will see you, the individual, as sovereign. And you now become the queen of your own life or the king of your own life. And by extension, as a collective, the kings and queens of your own country. We're going to have a non-partisan, publicly funded campaign system. This will mean that no longer will any candidate be funded privately by any entity, party, or group, or persons. They will have the same platform on which to reach you and communicate to you. This will be done fairly and justly, and then you will choose. You will also get to elect your executive in a national election by electing a president. No more prime minister, no more governor general, no more leader of the opposition. You will elect 3 vice presidents, 1 for each county, Cornwall, Middlesex, and Surrey. You will elect 33 constituency representatives and 14 senators, 1 for each parish. Notice these are all elected positions, and they're all independent of each other and can act independently of each other because they're not controlled by any special interest groups. And even if one of them were to be controlled by a special interest group covertly, the others, by virtue of the design, will be able to be a counterbalance and thwart any unscrupulous activities that any might want to pursue. The executive branch of your government, which will consist of the president and two persons who were elected with him or her, a secretary general and a treasurer secretary, together with the three vice presidents, will nominate quality persons to serve as ministers of government and as judges in our courts of law. These persons will then be vetted by the 14 senators publicly so that we can all see and hear why they're qualified for the position. Once the Senate has publicly vetted them, the Senate will then make a recommendation to the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives will then vote yes or no on the proposals from the Senate. By this means, we will elect qualified persons to serve you in all of your ministries, in your courts, and in other areas of government. These persons cannot be removed by the president or the executive without going back to the Senate and having a hearing, and then going back to the House for a vote on whether or not this change may be permitted. This will bring stability. It will change the narrative from government versus opposition to what is right for Jamaica, what is best for Jamaica. It's like a company. You don't have a great company by creating a split, a government and an opposition on the board. That's foolishness. In a great company, you have a board of directors where each of them are expected to use their individual judgment and independent thinking and competences to reach solid decisions on behalf of the company and direct its management and hold its management accountable, in this case, the executive. That is exactly what we're bringing to Jamaica and why we need to get rid of the system that now exists. In the end, this system will ensure that we no longer fight each other, but instead work together to ensure we have a safe Jamaica, a clean Jamaica, an orderly Jamaica. We will ensure we have a Jamaica where every single citizen knows that their life, their liberty, and their property rights are protected. This system will create a Jamaica where every single Jamaican can live, earn, and retire with dignity. My friends, this is important. It's very key that we have candidates who are not thrusted upon us by political parties, but candidates who come from the bowels of their communities, who understand the needs of their communities, who have existed and experienced the life of their communities. These candidates must be required to meet tough standards to qualify to run. These candidates must pass a good governance test that shows that they understand how good governance should work and that they're prepared to carry out the standards that will ensure the protection of your rights. They'll be tested in civics, history, economics, mathematics, communications, and the like. They will then have to secure vote commitments from a set number of nominators in their own communities who are willing to give up their voting rights to sign off on the credibility of these persons they wish to support to come forth from the community. All of them will be given the same equal access to newspaper ads, radio ads, television ads, and internet publicity. They'll be a part of the debates, the public debates, town hall discussions, and they'll therefore have equal access to you, the citizens, in a controlled way that allows for decency and transparency and allow you to... Sorry, yes?
Rap signal.
Sorry?
Rap signal, please.
Rap signal, thank you. As a result of this, you will have publicly vetted persons who are fact-checked by our qualified auditors, and then you, the citizens, can vote with confidence. The candidates, therefore, will need to earn the majority of votes casted, and this system will allow that, and Jamaicans will then have quality, credible persons as their representatives. This last slide shows you the difference between the system you have now and the one the UIC proposed. The UIC way, you'll have a head of state, a real independence, a Jamaican head of state. Now you have a foreign one. You'll have a head of state and head of government in one position, less costly. Now you have two, costing you millions of dollars unnecessarily. You'll have people directly electing the president as head of state and government. Currently, you have parties deciding who is your prime minister and head of government. The people of each party have two major party leaders dictating and appointing puppets as your senators. In the UIC system, you'll have a president and executive that nominates qualified, non-partisan. Senate will vet these persons and confirm or reject the nominees. Currently, the PM appoints MPs and senators without having any way, or in fact, without being required to justify the appointments. Under the UIC system, MPs and senators are not allowed to serve as ministers of government to avoid conflicts of interest. In the current system, they're allowed, and we see the effect of that conflict of interest and the corruption. Under the UIC system, MPs are nominated and elected by the constituents, not by a party. Under the current system, MPs are selected by party hierarchy and delegates instead of constituents. And finally, under the UIC, publicly funded campaigns will make it fair and economical, while under the current system, big money determines who has the advantage and is very unfair and very costly. So thank you very much for paying attention to this, and you'll hear more in the coming months as we reach out to Jamaicans and bring them up to speed on why this is the way to go to creating that real new Jamaica. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the very in-depth discussion that takes us into the UIC model of government. Having said that, with the clock running down, I will just ask you to give us your closing remarks, a condensed version of your closing remarks, and we'll just move ahead in the program.
Sure. My closing remarks won't be long, so that I've just given you a long spiel there. I just want to say to you, thank you very much for taking the time. It shows that you love your country. It shows that you really want a new and better Jamaica. And so continue to tune into the UIC, and I look forward to engaging with you more as we work to build that real new Jamaica. Thank you.
All right, so we'll skip right along to Mr. Kowalski, who is our membership director. So I'm giving you a few seconds to just reach out to those who are sharing with us on the various social media platforms to just bring them into the UIC family.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President, and thank you very much, Mr. President. Everyone did a phenomenal job to get the message out to the people, and I'm sure that people are thinking and saying, wow, this is awesome. This is what I've been wanting to hear all these years. So to get you to even be more involved, I would like to invite everyone under the sound of my voice to become a member of the UIC. And you may ask, how can I do that? Well, we do have a website, www.uicjamaica.com, that you can actually go and read more information about the organization. And you can also fill out a membership form where you can include your skills, what capacity you see that you could help us with. We need every hand on board. We need everyone, whatever your skills are, even to pass out a flyer. And most importantly, we need your financial donations. The organization needs funding so that we can get into the nook and cranny, like I like to say, the hills of Jamaica, all the places that most people won't go into, which is what our president has been doing since I've met him. He's on foot going into all the little districts in Northeast St. Elizabeth. And so we want to invite all of you. We also have social media platforms. We have the Facebook group, UIC Jamaica, in Facebook. We have Instagram. We're also in YouTube. So we're using these social media platforms to reach as many Jamaicans as possible, regardless of where you are. And by the way, I urge you to reach out to your family and friends, anyone who is supportive of Jamaica, and tell them about the UIC. We are officially a third party. We were registered back in November of last year. So Just so you know, you have that, we have a third option, so we don't have to stick to those two corrupt parties that have been destroying Jamaica all these years. It's time for a new Jamaica, and UIC has the foundation that we need to put into practice so that we can better all the families in Jamaica. Safe, clean, and orderly Jamaica. Thank you so much, Mr. Wright.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kowski. Thank you for sharing with us. And as Janet said, please go to our website, uicjamaica.com, or Facebook page. You can become a member of the UIC or Stand Up Jamaica. You can share with us. We are constantly on. We are on Twitter. We're on Instagram. You can find us all over social media. Your questions that have not been answered today, this is a regular feature of the UIC. Come back and be with us. Share with us. And also, you can also share those questions on social media, and we will answer those questions on social media as well. We're constantly engaging with Jamaicans. We're constantly engaging with our supporters and even non-supporters to bring them on board. So look out for your answers. And if you have any questions, feel free to share them with us. I'd like to thank everyone who took the time out to be with us, whether you were on this Zoom link or you were on one of the other social media platforms. I thank our president for being here and being so eloquent, our chairman for being here and being a constant source of support, all our members and supporters, our vice presidents. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our new members. And again, just thank you to everyone for listening, paying attention, and for being with us. With that being said, it was a pleasure having you here with us. We do this again in another few weeks. We will post that information on our Facebook page. We look forward to seeing you there, sharing with us, bringing us your questions so we can provide you with the UIC answer and show you the blueprint, the path to the real New Jamaica. Thanks for being with us. We look forward to seeing you again. As we adjourn, take care and be safe. I move to adjourn. Mr. President.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for participating. Good night, everyone. Be safe.